Hey everybody, it just started raining outside, so I've got to do the video in here. Uh, so welcome to this week's video. Let's get started. Hi everybody. I recently talked about things that the Bible does and does not say, and I was talking recently to somebody about what Paul didn't say, and specifically the fact that he never preached about what Jesus taught during his three-year ministry on earth, here on earth. He does talk about how he learned the gospel himself by going to Saudi Arabia, not to the disciples who did know Jesus personally. Paul had no doings with Jesus when Jesus was in his three-year ministry. However, all the disciples, they claimed their authority as apostles based on that very fact that they knew and touched and handled Jesus himself. Therefore they had that authority. That's what they claimed to have authority for. Paul said he didn't go to those guys to learn the gospel. He went to Arabia and was taught of Christ or of the Spirit for 3 years. To me, that's important because Paul also said he made that a fact. He chose to distinguish himself by that too. He said, I only choose to know Christ and him crucified. He didn't want to claim having, he didn't want, he knew that the claim of having known Jesus those 3 years during his teaching ministry and physically touched him and having been with him meant nothing. But what really meant everything was knowing the crucified Christ and what happened on that cross. And Paul tells us a lot about what happened on that cross. And Paul said in Ephesians, he said that in his body on that cross, that the law of Moses that was given under the old covenant was abolished. Now that's a really, really strong statement, and let me tell you why. Because we have to look at what Jesus said about abolishing law and fulfilling law and fulfilling prophecy. And Jesus said in Matthew that he did not come to destroy the law, meaning, which also means fragment. In other words, he didn't come to tear it apart, dissect it, um, do away with part of it, but not all of it, just fragments. He did not. He goes on further to say he didn't come to destroy the law or the prophets, but to fulfill them. And then after that, he says, not one jot or one tittle of the law shall in any way pass until all is fulfilled. Now, he just talked about what he came to fulfill, which was the law and the prophets. And he's saying not one jot or tittle is going to pass from the law until all of what I just said is fulfilled, the law and the prophets. What he's really saying then is if you ever discover that even a little tiny bit of the law has passed, that means the whole law has passed, but it could only pass until all was fulfilled, which means all prophecy had to be fulfilled. And there was a lot in that prophecy. And Paul talked about several of these things. But it was prophesied that when the Christ would come, he would take away the sin of the world. And it was prophesied that he would do it in one day. So if the law is abolished, it's funny too because I Googled it. And I Googled things Paul never said. And immediately the top result was Paul never said that the law was abolished. Well, it's right in Ephesians. The guy's an idiot. And then he renders several other verses totally out of context of what Paul's talking about in other letters. It's horrible. This guy really doesn't want the law to be gone because he probably knows if the law is abolished, then most of his other doctrines, if not all of them, are baseless and have no merit, because sin had to have been taken away if the prophets was fulfilled, and if the prophets were fulfilled, then the law was fulfilled. If the law is abolished, then the prophets are fulfilled. If the prophets are fulfilled, sin was taken away. Their gospel is no gospel, and that does render it no gospel. All right. So, you want to know what a no gospel is? It's a gospel of sin and law and judgment. Because the judgment of the world was fulfilled as foretold in the prophets at that cross. That's what if your gospel is sin and law and judgment, that's no gospel at all. And I didn't just say that, Paul said it first.